Welcome to the Virtual Global Leadership Podcast. Today, we have an exceptional guest, Sofia, a pioneer in well being and human centric productivity. Hailing from Portugal, Sofia has 7 years of experience in the FMCG industry, working with over 15 brands across 9 markets, from multinational corporations to startups. Her journey through marketing and sales has given her deep insights into workplace challenges. After facing the impact of chronic work stress on her health, Sophia became a certified health coach. Her mission is to create workplaces where people thrive through well being and human centric productivity. Sophia's approach blends her experience as an employee and as a coach, using evidence based strategies in neuroscience and psychology to craft effective solutions that enhance both well being and performance. Some fun facts about Sophia: she is bilingual in English and Portuguese. Sophia solo backpacked across East Asia for around 4.5 months just before the pandemic. And Sophia has led several award winning workplace sustainability projects. So let's dive in and learn from Sophia's innovative approach to workplace well being and discover how to drive sustainable high performance of teams and workplaces by focusing on humans. Welcome, Sophia. How are you?
Thank you, Sagar. It's really good to be here. I'm doing very well. How about you?
Wonderful. Just before we dive into the conversation, you had a 4.5 months of a trip. I just wanted to share. I just had a deja vu moment because just before pandemic, I took a similar trip. I was in Bali for about
Hmm.
3 weeks, and I was in Dubai for about 2 weeks. I mean, just on
I
February,
know,
mid
it's so
February.
lucky.
So how was
Perfect
it? How was
timing.
that 4.5 months for you? Like,
So it was really exciting, and it was something that I had always wanted to do. Kind of, is the backpacking across East Asia. It seems to be what everyone kind of wants to do as a career break nowadays. So it was really exciting. I would say that I'm someone who loves routine. So towards the end, I was kind of missing the comfort of routine. But overall, it was amazing.
so, a lot of folks who are on LinkedIn, be it in uh, whatever level of management they are, be it top, mid-size, or even they are just they're starting their career. I I would like to understand how important travel is for, be it for mental well-being or productivity. How do you see that? Like,
Actually, that's an interesting question. I think it depends very much on the individual. There's this big hype around travel, but the truth is, travel isn't for everyone, and there's different types of travel. Not everyone wants to solo travel. Not everyone wants to go to fancy hotels. So it really depends. Not everyone likes to travel. That's the reality. So I think it depends on your relationship with travel. Do you enjoy it? Do you not? If you don't enjoy it, it's probably not going to do much for your mental health. If you do it and you see it as a good way to recover and recharge and relax, then fantastic. I think it completely depends on the individual.
so, uh, good that you shared this. I just want to bring an interesting angle. Uh, Here in this part of the world, specific, let's say in India, a lot of folks travel because they get stressed in their workplace for a couple of weeks or a month, or
Hmm.
maybe once in 3 months. Maybe the organizations themselves plan a trip, or a group of colleagues they plan a trip. And during those trip, let's say uh, on a Friday evening they'll go on a weekend getaway, and Saturday, Sunday, they are like, most of the times they are uh, boozing around, they are drinking. And on Monday, instead of getting let's say releasing pressure, they come up with more pressure, right?
Hmm.
So just wanted to understand, because I'm sure a lot of folks who are going to watch this, uh, you know they say very proudly that, hey, like, you know what, we are going on a vacation, maybe a short trip, but then it's not helping them either. So just wanted to get your thoughts into it.
So I think when we talk about, firstly, I think we can't be using holidays as our only work recovery strategy. I think work recovery needs to be incorporated in our day to day. We can't be living for the next holiday to waiting for that to relax, right? So that's the first thing I would say. So it's really important that we change our mindset around how we view work recovery and how we view the role of holidays in that. But then second thing is, I think not every type of holiday is a recovery, is a work recovery opportunity. Because if you go on your holiday and you're going to bed at 6 a.m. and drinking all day, I mean, that's definitely not going to be great in terms of a recovery strategy, because not only is it going to be negatively impacting your sleep and your health overall, you're probably not getting the relaxation and the recharging that you actually need. So just to
Yeah.
give you an example, like personally for me, if I went on a city break, that's not really an opportunity for me to relax and recharge. For me to relax and recharge on holiday, I really need to do nothing. For me, I would happily just lie down on the beach and do nothing, because sometimes I do need that to recharge. So not every holiday is really a relaxation and recovery opportunity, is what I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sophia, for sharing that. So now here I would like to understand, how is workplace well-being is accounted for, and is it really accounted for? Because I see many people just talk about workplace well-being, and in that they do this kind of funny weekend trips. They do a lot of funny stuff, a lot of
Yeah.
that. So just wanted to get your perspective on what's exactly the ground reality.
So I think there's a lot of talk about workplace well-being, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that there is an increase in awareness of its importance. But I think the way it's being translated into practice isn't yet the ideal. I think, like you said, we're very focused on kind of the ticking boxes and the superficial actions, rather than doing the work that's actually going to create impact and drive results. And just to give you an impact on this, we know that work stress is an issue. We know that burnout is an issue. Just to share a statistic, over 70% of people in the modern workforce have felt burnt out in the last year, which is a shocking statistic. That's 7 in 10 people. That statistic shouldn't be real. But what I hear a lot of people talk about, okay, let's do more stress management. And what I think when I hear people talk, let's do more stress management, I'm like, no matter how much stress management you do, if people are way over their capacity and their stress levels are too high to begin with, no amount of stress management is going to change that. What you need to do is address the root cause of your issues, whether that's human resources, whether that's your workplace culture isn't supporting your employees, whatever the root cause of your stress is. So there needs to be a shift from ticking boxes and, there's a lot of plenty of well-being initiatives or workplace initiatives that are fun from a bonding perspective, like team lunches and having the fruit basket. But when it needs to translate into impact, and for that we need to get serious, and we need to actually go beyond the surface and look at what are the real issues. How do we address the root?
So, what are the some of the real issues, Sophia, you have encountered while interacting with folks? Like it would be great to know, like what are some of the perspectives. Maybe I'm sure the line of work that you are into, you might be interacting with a lot of CEOs or HR leaders,
Mm.
or So, what are some of the insights they share with you, and please also help me understand why they are thinking in that particular way, and why not they are trying to address the core issue. I'm so sorry, I'm just being so direct here,
No,
because
you're
I yes,
absolutely.
so, yeah, yeah, please
So
go ahead.
I think the main issue is a mindset issue. So, for example, one of the challenges I sometimes, not always, it depends on the company, but I sometimes encounter is kind of this belief that well-being and productivity are on opposite sides of the spectrum. And of course, a company wants productivity. They need to produce that enables them to thrive, right? To keep going. But there's this perspective that, oh, investing in well-being means taking away from productivity. And that's absolutely not the case. I mean, we've all had a bad night of sleep and seen the impact on the next day. We're less focused, we're less able to solve problems, we're more stressed, we're less creative. So we've all seen that actually there's a correlation between well-being and performance, but it's not the one that people often think it is. It's not that, oh, I invest in well-being, I take away from performance. It's more actually investing in well-being will drive performance. So the first issue I see is a need for a change in mindset to see well-being as fuel for performance. That's really, really important. And the second kind of key topic is we need to move away from what I just talked about, the band-aids, the superficial, like tick the box kind of thing. And we need to start actually taking action that has impact. And that's also a difficult mindset shift a lot sometimes for companies, because it requires digging deeper, and it requires, sometimes stirring the pot, sometimes having difficult conversations. So those two are sometimes difficult mindset shifts. But having said that, I see more and more CEOs and more HR leaders wanting to make those shifts and taking action in that direction.
Sophia, this particular perspective is alarming, because if some of the leaders, if they are equivaling, if they are unable to, draw parallel between workplace, rather I would say well-being and productivity, and if some of the folks feel that well-being will take away productivity, that indicates to me, when I hear it, when I go deep down, what I get is that we have to use suppressive strategies to get the job done. This is how I interpret it.
Hmm.
So what are some of suggestions and inputs you would like to share with those leaders who might be having this particular mindset, that
So
what we
the
have to,
hmm.
yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So the first thing I'll say is challenge yourself. Like, ask yourself the question, okay, but what if well-being actually help enhance productivity? Would I not want to try that? I don't think any leader would say no to that question. So
Yeah.
challenge your own way of thinking. Start pushing yourself slowly out of your comfort zone and asking yourself the what if questions. That's the first thing I would recommend. So because ultimately, often, it's very hard for people to change their mindset, particularly if they don't want to. It's impossible. But generally, changes in mindset are difficult. But so rather than completely challenging yourself to do a 180 change in what you believe, just challenge yourself slowly, push yourself slowly out of your comfort zone, and just start asking these simple questions. Start having conversations with other people. Ask, hey, have you tried any well-being initiative that you saw reflect positively on your performance? What was it? Why did it reflect positively? How did it reflect positively? So start challenging yourself and start having those conversations and asking those questions.
Interestingly, last week I was thinking about this idea of, how about we have a dedicated hour, or a dedicated half an hour every day, be it at home, it could be at informal setups, or be it at workplaces. Every day people love to have those meetings, although everyone has their own opinion, but I would just share that how people like to catch up every day for 30 minutes to get to schedule their work or plan their work in
Mm.
organizations. So I was thinking in a direction here, like, can we have a work, let's say a well-being dedicated time, maybe every week or so, or maybe at least once in 2 days. So please feel free to share your thoughts, and also share what are some of the things that you feel is important. Like, this is just a starting point.
Absolutely. I actually think that's an excellent recommendation, and it's something that I recommend myself to, specifically to integrate well-being into one-to-one catch-ups. So particularly with line managers. So line managers are extremely important when it comes to employee well-being in the workplace. Actually, research shows that line managers have more impact on our health than therapists. So line managers really are very important. And having those regular conversations also helps people become more aware of how they're feeling. Because the truth is, so many of us run on autopilot and rushing from thing to thing that we actually can't slow down and don't stop to check in with ourselves. So creating those moments actually means that we start thinking about what we actually feel, because also we know that in the next time we meet with this person, we need to be telling them something. So we might as well tell them the truth. So I think it's an excellent idea, and I absolutely recommend it. And it's actually one of the ways that I've seen companies who've successfully integrated well-being into their organizations. That's one of the strategies that they use, is they incorporate some questions, some simple questions, sometimes 2 or 3 questions, into one-to-one catch-ups, so that they can have a preventative action towards it. So they can people can keep on top of how they're feeling. Are they over capacity? Are they very stressed. What do they understanding how they feel and what they need. So it's a strategy I absolutely recommend. Actually, have you seen this done in anywhere, Sagar, or have you seen any companies around you implement this?
Um, in my, let's say, line of experience, maybe I am, because I was part of an incubator. My
Mm,
In my last avatar, I was leading one of the incubators here. So it was, let's say, in a way, very important to take care of leader well-being, or leadership well-being was a very important aspect of the work that we did.
mm,
But in my experience, I'm not sure, or I like how here I would see, let's say, corporates or startups, how often they are integrating it, or
yeah,
if they are integrating it, is it only on, maybe on LinkedIn, or wherever they're posting it, they're sharing the well-being, but on the back end they're just
yeah.
ticking on the checklist. So it would be great, Sophia, to know from you. Happy to learn some of the case studies, if you have, helping them. I would love to know more about it.
Yeah, so I think there's two companies I would highlight that have done a particularly good job. Funnily enough, they're both in the same kind of industry, but the first one is Innocent, which is, I don't know if you've heard of Innocent, but it's like the smoothie company, huge company in the UK, very purpose driven. And Innocent have done an absolutely incredible job of incorporating well-being into their culture. And I want to highlight that sentence again, that they incorporated well-being into their culture. So it's not an
Wow.
add-on. It's not something they do to tick a box. It's something
Yeah.
that's a part. It's integrated into the way they work. It's integrated into their policies. It's integrated into their values. It's integrated into their day to day, and that's the reason why it's so successful. So Innocent is absolutely like a case study that I regularly talk about. They have these kind of well-being catch-ups embedded into their one-to-one, so they check in with employees regularly. They have a vast network of mental health officers. They have, flexible working policies, a lot of openness and transparency around well-being conversations. So they've really done a very good job. The second
Wow.
company I would highlight is a company called Who Gives a Crap, which is a company which is in the toilet paper industry. So they're a purpose-driven company as well, and they produce and sell toilet paper that's made out of 100% bamboo. Uh, Who Gives a Crap has a very similar approach to Innocent in the way they've incorporated well-being. I actually know their workplace well-being director, so they have a dedicated team, and I know how really to be honest, they're such trendsetters that they're an excellent example for companies that want to take steps in the direction of being more proactive about their well-being and integrate it into their culture. Who Gives a Crap is such a good example to look at, and even reach out to them, have a conversation with them, ask them what are they doing, how can I do it too. Because a lot of times these companies and their directors and their employees are very open to sharing, because everyone wants to talk about what's going well, right? So we can all learn from each other.
So, Sophia, you have to help me here. You'll have to introduce me to one folks from each company, so that I can have them on the podcast and share their
Absolutely.
learning. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Sophia. Before we dive deep into the topic, I would love to know more about, you coming from a marketing background, leading key initiatives. What was that point then you decided that, hey, like, I have to really shift my planets, and
Yeah.
really create value for people living in the planet. So it would be
Yeah.
great to get that journey, because a lot of folks in my network, or leaders in my network, and I'm sure in your network, are in the same domain. Maybe they may not be, they might not be shifting their, let's say, their journey, but they would
Mm.
love to know more about, what, because the challenges would be similar. So it
Yeah,
would be great.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So for me, it was really kind of hitting a rock bottom in my life. So I had been working in the consumer goods industry in marketing and sales for 7 years. I had frequently felt stressed. That wasn't news. But I got to a point where I was so chronically stressed that I had a list of health symptoms that were really longer than the grocery receipt. So I was very young. I was only 27. So it was a very scary time in my life because I was so young and experiencing all these health issues due to work stress. And when I was at that point in my life, it really made me think, like, there has to be a better way to work. Like, we can't be doomed to feel this way, to go through this. Like, no one deserves this. And it was really going through that experience, which now I'm very thankful for, that made me realize that, you know what, I want something different for myself. I don't believe this is the only way. So I'm going to find a better way to work, a way to work where I actually feel good doing it, which I can actually sustain both my productivity, my energy, my passion, because all of a sudden, all of those things had evaporated. And I'm quite an energetic and passionate person. So seeing myself without either of those was a really shocking time. So I really wanted to find a better way to work. And that was a trigger point for me to want to make this transition into the field that I'm in now.
Wonderful. Any specific advice and suggestions for marketeers? Because I see a lot of marketeers, they are glued on their systems, tracking campaigns for
Yeah.
about 8 to 12 hours, or are constantly negotiating with brand guys or design
Mm,
guys. Like, constantly they are in the uh, you know middle of the important elements of negotiation. So some of
yeah.
the suggestions where how they can neutralize this, feel free to, I would love to know more about it. Yeah.
So this is going to sound harsh, but this is the advice I would have given myself. Like, get a life. Sounds absolutely harsh. But the reason I say this, and I see this a lot with marketeers, especially because we're very passionate people. We really love our jobs. We give our heart and soul to what we do. We're extremely attached to our work. But that means that we tend to overgive. And we then lose sight of also looking after ourselves and nurturing other aspects of our life. We end up depending a lot on our work for value and fulfillment. So, my
Yeah.
genuine advice would be nurture other things. Find other things outside of work that you're passionate about. That's not going to make you any worse at your job, not at all, because what that's going to mean is that you're actually going to be refueling. You're going to be engaging in things that recharge you and refuel you. And so you're going to be able to keep giving to your job and keep giving more. So, my
Yeah.
genuine advice, and I say this to anyone who depends on work a lot for value and fulfillment, is look for other things and nurture your life outside of work, because that's going to allow you to then keep putting into your job.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sophia, here I share something which is very personal, and I think I feel ready to share that. In my last two organizations, I have realized, more or less, I had deep passion for my love,
Mm,
deep passion for the work that I used to love. And just because uh, of sudden transition in the aspiration, or and sudden realization of whether this is me who would want to do it for the next 5-10 years. So
mm,
I would say, in a way, for the lack of better word, I had actually gone uh, through an organization breakup. People
mm,
usually have breakups in their lives, but I feel that way. So because it happened, I was unable to logically evaluate it. So the
mm,
best thing, I thought that, hey, maybe I should move out of the organization, and
mm,
before taking any other work, it's better I wait for some time and then take the work. So this is something, I'm just sharing a real life scenario about me, and I would love to know, because I'm sure a lot of people who would be watching, listening, are people who would want who are might be, could be, let's say, going through some sort of mental stress, or could be
yeah.
exhausted, or maybe are not in the, let's say, privileged position to take this step, which I could, because of the situation which is around me. So I'm just sharing this. Sophia, would love to be coached live here from you and get an perspective.
So, a perspective in terms of what would you do? What should you
Yeah,
do?
yeah, what should you do? Yeah, what? Yeah, because this is something very strange phenomena that happened with me. So yeah.
So it depends. If you're in a position, sometimes genuinely, when you're unhappy in a job, and especially if it's a long period of time, honestly, sometimes the best option is to leave if you can afford to do so. Absolutely, because
Yeah.
sometimes the job is the root cause, and there might be a toxic work culture, or maybe there's a problematic manager you can't get away from, or if there's a job related factor that's really affecting you, especially if it's not a 1 day or 2 day thing, absolutely you should look at leaving. And if you're not in the privileged position to be able to leave immediately and take some time to yourself, then create a plan. Look at the steps that you need to take to move in that direction. But what I would say is don't stay stuck there. Don't stay stuck not taking action, because it doesn't get better if you don't take action. A lot of
Yeah.
people think, oh, if I stop and wait, the worst will pass. It won't. So honestly, if you start to feel like you're kind of getting into this rut, or if things aren't getting well with a specific job, make a plan, make an exit plan, or make a transition plan. So that's the
Mhm.
first thing I would say.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sophia, for sharing that. Um, Also, I would love to understand human-centric productivity.
Mm.
It would be great to get your perspective on how do you see this, or how do you visualize this?
So for me, human centric productivity is really about having a people first approach to performance. So the reality is, we're not machines, right? We're not made to operate at 100% all the time. We're human beings, and we have certain ways that our body works, certain ways that our brain works. We have certain limits. And so human centric productivity is really about learning to honor those limits and work with them rather than push against them. When we push against them, which is typically what traditional methods of productivity do because they weren't built for the type of work that we do now, we end up exhausted, we end up burnt out, we end up sick. On the
Yeah.
other hand, if we use human centric productivity practices which respect us as human beings, we're able to sustain our productivity levels, we're able to sustain our energy levels, and we're able to sustain our levels of engagement, our drive, and our passion. So it's really about human sustainability, human centric productivity. It's about being able to keep going in the long term.
Yeah. Uh, Nowadays, people are talking a lot about uh, uh, these two keywords have become very famous. People are talking about loneliness.
Mm,
People are talking about overthinking.
mm,
So these two are, I would say, be it a TED talk, be it any conference that I'm attending, be it on LinkedIn, wherever I see, great from an awareness standpoint. But I mean, what's happening in the action? I'm clueless. It would be great if
mm.
you could share what needs to be done.
So I wouldn't say I'm an expert when it comes to kind of loneliness, but what I would say, I felt lonely myself. I mean, especially living as an expat, where you have to, every time you move country, you start your life all over again from scratch with no friends, with nothing. But what I would say is that there's a lot of people on your boat. If for anyone out there who is experiencing loneliness, you're not alone, and that's why we talk about it so much, because there's so many people feeling that way. And what that means is that there's other people you can connect with. Now, it also means that you have to go and look for those people, which isn't a particularly easy thing. But the truth is that there are more and more forums nowadays that allow for that. You can use things like Meetup. If you're an expat, Facebook communities are huge. There are tons and tons of expat Facebook communities. And frankly, when I was abroad, that's how I met most of my friends. And so I love them. There's also apps like Time Left, which join strangers over dinner. They connect people. They aim to fight loneliness, and so they join people in different cities. So there are problems, absolutely, and they're absolutely not easy to deal with. But I think it's important that we take steps in the direction of feeling good and finding ways to connect with others. That's absolutely vital for our health, no doubt. In fact, actually, the research also shows that social connections are more important than exercise or more important than nutrition when it comes to longevity and well being. So, social connections are key.
But don't you think people are finding it difficult to trust each other? And you see all the data points with respect to, let's say, workplace well-being. They're achieving their sales targets, they're achieving their whatever salary hikes, whatever it
Mm.
is, but their experience of that particular organization to a larger extent seems to be unfulfilled,
Yeah,
although
and
there are, yeah, go ahead, yeah,
sorry, please finish.
although they have all the colleagues where they share the successes, but seldom people share their vulnerabilities within their team members. thinking maybe how would I be perceived with my team.
Hmm.
um, Maybe I'm just sharing this because these are some ground realities, and it would be great to gain your perspective on how this could be solved. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you're right in terms of people are a bit afraid to be vulnerable in the workplace, and who can blame them? The workplace sometimes isn't, the healthiest of
Yeah.
environments, or the truth is you don't know how that information is going to be used. So I definitely think you need to keep a separation between your personal and professional lives and be cautious about what you share in the workplace. Having said that, when it comes to fostering a more inclusive and engaged work environment where people feel a part of, and they have a fulfilling workplace experience, I think firstly it starts with how are you connecting people. What's your mission, what's your vision, what are you working towards? Both the companies I gave examples of, Innocent and Who Gives a Crap, are purpose-driven mission companies. So for example,
Mhm.
Who Gives a Crap, if I'm not mistaken, is actually a social enterprise. So people are working for a goal that goes beyond profit, and they're connected by that. And also reflecting on my own experience, I also worked for a social enterprise. I also worked for a multinational, but very purpose-driven multinational. And that mission was something that kept me highly engaged and really fueled my own passion. So I think starting with that, with what are you connecting people? What are they working towards that's bigger than money, is really, really important. The second thing I would say is create opportunities for connection, whether through team building events, or after work drinks or team lunches, but create opportunities for people to engage, to connect, to relax together, to have a laugh, to let the stress out. Create those opportunities and create them intentionally. And the third thing I would say, and I say the Innocent does this very well, and so does Google actually, is create the workspace for it too. So if you look at offices like Google and Innocent, they have ping pong tables and swings and slides and these fun elements that also give a more relaxed and add to that relaxation and engagement element. So I would think those three are very important. The vision, the intentionally create moments to engage and connect, and then the actual workplace environment.
Yeah. We might have heard a lot of news around layoffs being happening in the last at least couple of years post pandemic.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for folks, who have been part of such big organizations or corporates? Any suggestions on how they can take care of their well-being in this transition phase?
This is such a hard question because it can affect people in so many ways in their life, and it's for some people, especially people with children and who have that people depend on them. It must be such a terrifying situation. What I would say, and I say this from a very scientific perspective, so perhaps it's not the reassurance that the kind of the warm and reassurance effect, but it's for people to also understand what's going on in their brain, and then to bring themselves more comfort through that. So basically, our most basic need is safety.
Yeah.
Financial safety, the safety of having a home, the safety of being able to walk outside and not be robbed. So safety is really a primary need that we have. When we go
Mhm.
through a situation like a layoff, or we're at risk of a layoff, that safety is being basically pulled from us.
Yeah.
And so our brain enters, this fight or flight response, which can be extremely taxing. Now, the first thing I would say is really important is validate the fact that it's okay to feel stressed and anxious about the situation. You're going through a situation that is normal to feel anxious and stressed about. So validate what you're feeling. The second thing I would say is, because what's being taken away from you is safety, you need to find ways to create safety. So it
Yeah.
might be from, okay, make a plan to look for another job. Start taking actions in that direction. Set yourself goals. Look at what are 5 actions that are within your control to take right now. So find little ways to create safety for yourself. Look at things that you can control. The third thing I would say is very important in a situation like that is look for external support, especially not only through friends and family, which are extremely important, especially during these times, but also look for professional help. Look for someone who can help guide you and support you during those situations, because oftentimes it can make the situation, it's not an easy situation. I don't know if it can ever be an easy situation, but it can have less of an impact on you. and you can learn to manage it in a way that isn't so taxing. So that support network is absolutely important to help you do that.
Thank you, Sophia, for sharing that. Also, with the rise of new companies coming up, be it startups or be it corporates expanding themselves, there's a lot of rise in uh, leadership roles where leaders are accountable for driving their businesses. And when you are a startup founder or you are a product leader in an organization, uh, you are you are really prioritizing work and sales over everything else. Now, how to convince that leader that, hey, you know what, you are a startup founder, we understand it, but you know what, this is something you can't put it to the put it in the last page of the list. So yeah, it would be great to get your thoughts.
So this is a hard one because startups have another limitation oftentimes, which is budget. So they
Hmm.
often don't have the money to invest in certain initiatives. So the first thing I would say is I think there's too much of an obsession with rapid growth. I think there's too much inception with
Yeah,
how can we get big as quick as possible, because that's going to require you to give more than you have, and it's not sustainable. And a big problem I actually see in organizations, big and small, is they're always running. And I say this, and I went through it too. There's always, you're always running. You never stop to relax and recharge. And actually, I'd love to give the example of athletes. Athletes are high performers. They're always striving to achieve their best. But athletes are actually really good with resting and recovery. They're not always performing. They intentionally take time every week, every day to rest, to recover. They take periods of downtime, oftentimes during the low seasons of their sports, to go on holiday and to do other things. So I would say that learning to rest and recover is just so important for every company and every stage. But going back to your question on startups, I think again, it starts with mindset. It starts with leaders challenging themselves and asking themselves the question, okay, what is the potential? What could happen if I start investing in my employees' well-being right now rather than later? What benefit could that bring me in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term? Because I hear a lot of startup founders say, okay, once I have the budget, this will for sure be a priority. But you don't always need budget. There are things you can do with little or no budget. So start with that mindset question, asking yourself, okay, if I start right now, if I started investing in my employees' well-being right now, what would be possible? What would be the potential of this? What could it drive for my business? What could it drive for my workforce? What could it drive for me? So again,
yeah,
mindset is the starting point.
yeah. Sometimes when I introspect and reflect on this particular thought that comes to me, that hey, be it a leader or a change maker or a startup founder, you're planning this business so that you, let's say, earn profits or grow your business, so that it ultimately you feel financially stable, you spend good time with your family, friends, or have that vacation or do whatever you want to do. But the entire purpose of building is to use the resources, be it time or money, for well-being.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they're pushing that, okay, when I will arrive at a particular time in life in my journey, I will
Mm.
then take care of my well-being.
Yeah.
Versus 12 hours you are working with a team, with your building the company, where you're okay to hire and fire, where you're okay to talk. Maybe sometimes I'm sure you have heard about people not respecting each other at the organizations.
Mm.
That is also a big cause of stress in the workplace scenarios. So this is something that I think, hey, like, why are you doing then this, whatever you're doing? So it would be great to hear your perspective.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think we're all guilty of that to some extent, in some way, shape, or form, of, having that, oh, when this happens, then I'll do whatever it is I actually want to do it. But I think a better question to ask yourself is, all right, how can I do that right now? even if it's in a really little way, because all of this really is just about habits and behavioral change, and these things becoming so automatic and a part of our day to day that they're a part of our normal life. So rather than whatever you're saying to yourself, firstly become aware, like what is it that you're telling yourself that you're going to do later? What is that? Because awareness is key. It starts there. And then ask yourself, okay, how can I bring that into my life right now rather than waiting for later? What's the low hanging fruit? What's that little thing I can do that's within my power right now to bring that into my life? And do more of that. Because the more we focus on the things that we can control and that we can influence, that we can do right now, more that circle of influence is going to grow. So more things that we can do and that are in our control come into that circle of influence. So just ask yourself that simple question: what can I do right now? I think it's interesting how many people see that a lot is in their power when they ask themselves these questions.
Sophia, what are your thoughts on imposter syndrome? That I think is also a big stress at workplace. It really disrupts the workplace well-being, right?
Absolutely.
So it would be great to get your perspective.
And honestly, especially as a millennial, I think every millennial has imposter syndrome to some degree. And even I'll share this very openly and candidly. Honestly, when I transitioned into this field, my imposter syndrome was huge, because what I thought was like, oh, I'm a marketeer, I'm a salesperson. What am I doing in this field? What gives me the credibility to help people with this? So at the start, imposter syndrome was a huge problem, even though I've been in the trenches. I've gone through what people are experiencing. So I know it better than most people do, even though I have the training, even though all of that, I still struggled with but what makes me qualified? So ask yourself this question.
Also, to add on to that,
Hmm.
uh, how true it is in your part, your part of the world. But I think what I've realized is that people are unwilling to accept you in a different avatar. That's a different problem.
Yeah,
If you're
sometimes people
transitioning,
stick.
just think how can this, yeah. So so these are, because I'll tell you the reason. It would be great we are
Hmm.
touching upon this, because a lot of people would want to transit internally in a corporate. They're used to a particular responsibility,
Hmm.
and they would want to work on a different responsibility. And the second scenario is that a lot of leaders who have the acumen, who have the let's say financial strength to start something of their own, they are indecisive because they don't see that they will be valued in their ecosystem just because of
Yeah.
their transition. So it would be great to get your inputs here.
So I think on the first one around changing within an organization is find organizations that support that, because more and more organizations nowadays support people moving, horizontally and not just up the hierarchy. And I say this from experience from companies I worked with. They were actually quite supportive in moving people to other areas to get experience or make career changes. So look for companies that are open to do that, to doing that would be the first thing I would say. With regards to kind of like that insecurity around not feeling valued, that comes from your own self-confidence, and that's work that you have to do on yourself, and that we all have to do on ourselves. Build our self-confidence with whatever we are suffering from insecurity on. So make a list of things that make you valued for that particular thing. Ask people, okay, ask friends, ask family members, with regards to this, well, what about me do you think would bring value that I already have? Because actually, more often than not, I think you'd be quite surprised with the answers that people give. So build that confidence, make that intentional exercise. And the reality is, it's not going to be a one-off exercise, because that insecurity is going to keep coming back. So every time you feel that insecurity, you're going to have to repeat that exercise until your brain actually believes you. Because for the brain, repetition and consistency are key. So our brain has certain beliefs about ourselves, like, I'm not going to be valuable in this function, I'm not going to be a good founder, whatever it is that your brain believes about you right now. But the amazing thing about the brain is that we have the power to change our beliefs. We literally choose what we want to believe in. So choose what you want to believe in. Do you want to believe that you're valued in doing whatever new thing you're going to do, or not? And if you want to choose to believe that you're going to be valued, your brain needs to believe you. And for that to happen, you need to provide it with evidence. So you need to make that list of what are the reasons for my brain to believe it, and you need to keep repeating it until your brain actually believes it. And what you'll realize is at some point, you're no longer going to be asking yourself whether you are valuable or not, because you're going to know that you are. So it's a whole kind of self-worth and self-confidence exercise.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Sophia, for putting that inside. One important aspect I really want to touch here is office politics
Mm,
and its impact on the workplace well-being. I've noticed here, people all I've seen, and I've seen all the wonderful HR leaders, maybe it on any public forum, they talk about inclusivity, which is great. I think we have to be aware, but as humans, we tend to have our biases, and the unfortunate reality still exists that office politics is happening based on, it could be race, culture, religion. It could be so many.
mm.
I'm just putting this surface level, but there could be so many reasons. So how does a company ensure that this is not impacting the morale of the employees? Just your thoughts here.
So I think it's difficult for it not to impact the morale of employees, especially if you're directly affected by whatever conversation is being had or whatever it is. I think it's really important for companies to foster conversations around engagement and inclusivity. I think that's absolutely key, and to take action to involve people, especially in hiring. It starts from hiring, right? Ensuring that you have a diverse workforce. That already in itself is going to mitigate a lot of the discrimination that happens. But then having very clear policies around these topics, I think, is crucial, because there are lines that can't be stepped on. And your organization is responsible for making those lines clear and then for enforcing them. So there are things where I don't think there is room for negotiation. And I think any talk of discrimination has to be a very clear line, and companies need to enforce that very strictly.
Also, Sophia, this could be indirectly connected, but I think this is very much connected with the overall well-being, be it terms of workplace or otherwise. Uh, we see a lot of there's a constant rise in divorce cases. There
Mm,
is a constant rise in suicides in all age groups, be it even working professionals. Few things they're unable to handle, and you see all over the news. Okay, and of course with the rise of the global unrest, be it wars, or so this could be the situations could be external, but as humans you are any which way is valuable, and then of course you are really valuable for the company's growth also.
mm.
Everything is so interconnected. So what are your thoughts and inputs on how can organizations track, or rather ensure that the other side, the person when he's out of office, uh, and first of all, Sophia, is it really the responsibility of the organization to even track that? But if not, then how does this ensuring is happening? Yeah.
So I don't think it's the company's responsibility to track that. I think what happens in your personal time happens in your personal time, when you have the right to do whatever you wish. I think the company, however, that doesn't mean that the company can't support employees and help educate and help them create healthier habits. So, just for example, kind of understanding the importance of kind of switching off. And even we talk a lot about digital detoxes nowadays and the importance of switching off from social media and so on. So there's definitely educational support that I think the company can give, but I wouldn't say it's their responsibility to track or enforce anything. I think they can support and give educational resources, especially if employees say, look, I'm struggling with this, maybe this is something you guys can help me with. So yeah, I think it's more that angle.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do you see future of well-being, is how it is going to shape? What are some of the trends? Where does
Mm.
the future of well-being, how do you see in 2030, 2035?
So I think that one trend we're already seeing very clearly established is around remote working and flexible working. And I think that's going to become much huger and perhaps even one day become the normal. I guess we'll see. It depends obviously on the type of organization as well. The second thing I think we'll see is more focus on burnout prevention, both through training and policies. At the moment, the reality is we have a burnout epidemic, and I'm seeing more and more burnout coaches, more and more burnout prevention trainings. I do burnout prevention trainings myself, and I believe that they're absolutely essential to every organization, even organizations that don't have a stress or burnout problem, because the whole point of burnout prevention is to not have a burnout and stress problem.
Yeah, of
So
course.
we're
Yeah.
definitely seeing that trend on the rise. I think a third trend that we're seeing more and more is around employee empowerment, is around employees owning their well-being and taking action, learning to set boundaries, learning to prioritize self-care. And again, I think that's essential. And the fourth trend that I believe we're going to see more and more is, as I said at the start, there's still a big focus on kind of the ticking the boxes and the superficial actions. But we are seeing more steps being taken towards a holistic well-being approach where it's really integrated into the organization's day-to-day and addresses the real issues. And I think we're going to see that more and more in the coming years.
What are some of the common blind spots that leaders are unable to see, and it's not captured even in
Mm.
data as they collect data, even it is not captured there. So it would be
Yeah.
great perspective.
So I think one of the big blind spots I see among leadership teams is they're not leading by example.
Mhm.
So your employees, your team will follow what you do. So I have been a part of teams where the leaders, they're like, oh yes, do this well-being workshop, this well-being initiative, but they don't take part. And what that means is that then among the employees, there's very low engagement rates in the actual initiatives. People don't actually, enforce the things they learn because they don't see their leadership team do it. And so the leadership team is then looks at the result of whatever well-being initiative it is, and oh, this didn't work. No, they probably would have worked if you would have taken part in it too. So a big blind spot is around leadership thinking that well-being is just for employees. It's not. And you're going to see much better results if you go on this journey with your workforce. I think that's the first point. The second blind spot I see is oftentimes around, kind of linked to that office politics topic, is understanding how you are impacting your team. Because it's very easy to kind of discard accountability and put it on someone else. Oh, my team is stressed for this reason or for that reason. But oftentimes, and I'm not saying this, it's not a blame game, but ask yourself, what could I be doing that could be contributing to this? Because again, like I said, leadership has such a big role. Managers play such a huge role in employee well-being. So it's really important for us to kind of, without judgment and wanting to throw blame, to really ask the question, okay, how might I be doing something? It might not be intentional, but you might be doing something that's having a negative impact on your team. And so, what, if it's you, great, because it means you can easily change it, because you can just address your behavior, right? It's not out of your control. So don't forget to also look in the mirror and ask yourself those questions. Those would be the two things I think are often blind spots and are very important.
Thank you, Sophia, for sharing your valuable time, valuable insights on workplace well-being and human-centric productivity. It's great to learn from your experience, the challenges you faced while transiting to this initiative, and also most importantly sharing the data points, which makes us reflect on where to focus. It would be great, Sophia, if you could share the best way to connect with you, uh, and also if you have any closing remarks or anything that you would like to add, feel free to do that. And yeah, looking forward to your thoughts.
Sure. So firstly, I wanted to say thank you so much for inviting me, and also for your great questions and insights and everything that we shared in the past hour. I really enjoyed being a part of the podcast. And for anyone who wants to reach out, you can do so by connecting with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty friendly, so all you have to do is send me a message saying hi. And also, if you're interested in finding more about the topics, I am more than happy to do a virtual coffee, absolutely no commitment, and just ask questions that you might want to find out more about. And I'd be more than happy to share about the topic. So yeah, I think the best way is to just connect here with me on LinkedIn, and we can take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you, Sophia. And I would also like to thank viewers for consistently sharing your love. I receive a lot of messages on my LinkedIn inbox on the value that you receive through this podcast. I also get suggestions on the topics on which I can invite the wonderful leaders like Sophia to share their valuable insights and inputs on their respective domain, and share their expertise and practical insights. So I'll continue to do that. Thank you for inspiring all the wonderful viewers for me to push this. I think it's a kind of a celebrative month because I think I've completed 1 year in the month of August of hosting this podcast. This is, I think, my 55th podcast. So I'm looking forward to hit the milestone number of 100. Uh, most probably this year. That's my intent. So I look forward to create value and learn and grow through this initiative and share whatever I can. Thank you, viewers.